There was a time when Christy McNichol was a name on everyone's lips. She was everywhere on magazine covers, television screens, talk shows, and movie posters. Her smile was radiant, her warmth tangible, and her acting so raw and real that it felt like she wasn't performing at all, but simply being herself. During the 1970s and 1980s, she was more than just a popular actress. She was a heart of Hollywood's television and film industry for young audiences. Families tuned in to watch her. Teenagers looked up to her, and critics praised her emotional depth at a time when few child actors could achieve such maturity. But just as suddenly as she rose to fame, she disappeared from the public eye. There was no dramatic scandal, no controversial exit, and no public farewell. She simply vanished. For decades, fans and the media speculated about what had happened to her, but the truth remained hidden until she finally shared her story. Christy McNichol's journey is not only about fame and success. It is also about the toll that Hollywood can take on young talent and the courage it takes to step away and reclaim one's life. Christy McNichol was born on September 11, 1962, in Los Angeles, California, a city often seen as a dream factory for actors and entertainers. However, her family's life was far from the glittering image of Hollywood. She grew up in a modest home with her mother, Carolyn, and her older brother, Jimmy. Her father left the family when she was very young, leaving Carolyn to take on the enormous responsibility of raising her children on her own. Carolyn worked tirelessly to provide for the family, taking on multiple jobs at once. She was a secretary, sold makeup, and even appeared in low-budget films in small roles to make ends meet. Survival, not fame, was the daily priority in the McNichol household. The family faced financial struggles and the daily stress of making sure bills were paid and meals were on the table, which left a deep impression on Christy as a child. She quickly learned the value of responsibility, resilience, and hard work, lessons that would both help and challenge her later in life. Christy's entry into the world of show business was almost accidental. One day, Carolyn had to bring Christy and Jimmy along to a film set where she was working as a background extra because she could not afford childcare. On that set, a crew member noticed the children's natural charisma and suggested that they would be perfect for commercials. This small observation changed the course of their lives. Soon, both children began attending auditions for television commercials. Jimmy adapted quickly, charming casting directors with his easygoing personality. Christy, however, had something more, a spark that combined innocence, intelligence, and emotional depth. Casting directors were impressed by her ability to express complex emotions even at a very young age. By the time she was 10, she was no longer just appearing in commercials. She was being recognized for her natural talent and emotional authenticity. She began receiving guest roles on popular television shows, gradually building a reputation as an actress capable of delivering performances that went beyond her years. The turning point in Christy's career came in 1976 when she landed the role of Buddy Lawrence on ABC's acclaimed drama series Family. She was only 13 years old at the time, but her performance was exceptional. Buddy was not a typical sitcom child, but a multidimensional character dealing with real-life issues such as adolescence, identity, and family dynamics. Christy brought a remarkable authenticity to the role, blending innocence with emotional maturity in a way that captivated audiences. Her performance earned her 3 consecutive Emmy nominations for Best Supporting Actress, winning twice in 1977 and 1979, an extraordinary achievement for someone so young. Her talent, professionalism, and dedication set her apart from her peers, making her a household name and earning her widespread admiration. Yet, while she shone in the public eye, the pressures of fame and the responsibilities she carried at home weighed heavily on her. Unlike other teenagers, Christy did not get to experience a carefree adolescence. She had contracts to manage, scripts to memorize, and emotional burden to support her family, which made her childhood far more complex than most by the time Family ended in 1980. Christy McNichol had already accomplished what many actors only dream of. Her fame was widespread, and she was admired not only for her talent but also for her maturity and poise. But beneath the surface, the constant work and adult responsibilities had taken a toll. She was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, from years of performing under the pressure of Hollywood's demanding standards. When the show concluded, Instead of taking a long break to recover, she accepted multiple film offers, eager to continue her success. One of these projects was Little Darlings in 1980, where she starred opposite Tatum O'Neal. The film explored the complexities of adolescence, including friendship, rivalry, and personal growth. Christie's performance as Angel Brightite, a tough, street-smart girl with hidden vulnerability, was mesmerizing. Critics praised her naturalism and emotional depth, solidifying her status as one of the most talented young actresses of her generation. Despite the accolades and popularity, the relentless pace of work and high expectations began to erode her well-being, creating a gap between her public image and private reality. As Christie's career advanced, the challenges of being a teenage star intensified. In addition to Little Darlings, she starred in The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia and Only When I Laugh, earning high salaries and critical recognition. Yet, she struggled with saying no. Directors, producers, and even her mother often expected her to take on every opportunity, leaving Christie little room to set boundaries. The demands of Hollywood, combined with her desire to please everyone, chipped away at her mental and emotional health. By the early 1980s, signs of strain were evident. She suffered from anxiety, exhaustion, and emotional fatigue, all of which would later be understood as symptoms of bipolar disorder. Despite her struggles, she continued to work, driven by a combination of professional responsibility and personal dedication, all while masking her inner turmoil from the public. This period of her life highlights the stark contrast between the glamorous image of young stars and the personal sacrifices they made to maintain it. The mid-1980s marked a turning point as Christie faced both professional and personal challenges. Her performance in the Pirate movie in 1982, a light-hearted musical, was poorly received, and she even earned a Golden Raspberry nomination, a stark contrast to her previous accolades. This public criticism compounded her stress, but the problem was not the film itself. It was a cumulative effect of years of overwork and emotional strain. Around this time, she began experiencing panic attacks, insomnia, and severe mood swings, all of which made it increasingly difficult to maintain her career and personal life. Her mental health struggles were largely misunderstood by the industry, and tabloids painted her as unstable, perpetuating the pressures she was already facing. It was a period of intense personal crisis, where Christie had to confront the consequences of a career built on relentless output from an impossibly young age. By the late 1980s, Christie sought a more sustainable path, joining the cast of NBC's Empty Nest in 1988. Unlike her previous intense dramatic roles, this sitcom provided stability and a supportive environment. She played Barbara Weston, a sensitive police officer living with her widowed father, a role that allowed her to reconnect with acting in a healthier context. Empty Nest became a hit, allowing audiences to appreciate Christie's talent once again. However, the internal struggles persisted. Even in a lighter, more supportive setting, she battled mental health issues, including bipolar disorder and anxiety, which eventually led her to make the difficult decision to leave the show in 1992. For Christie, this step was both a personal necessity and a courageous act of self-preservation. Leaving behind fame, fans, and a successful career was not easy, but was essential for her well-being. After leaving Hollywood, Christy McNichol began a new chapter of her life focused on healing and personal growth. She shifted her attention to teaching acting at a private school in Los Angeles, sharing her decades of experience with students. Teaching allowed her to engage with her passion without the intense pressures of fame, providing a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Outside of teaching, she cultivated a quieter, more grounded life. She spent time with close friends, engaged in charity work, practiced yoga, and found comfort in the companionship of her beloved miniature dachshunds. These simple routines became her sanctuary, providing stability, joy, and perspective. Through this period, Christy redefined success, focusing on personal happiness, mental health, and meaningful connections rather than public acclaim or material gain. In addition to her personal healing, Christy also shared her story publicly, breaking important barriers around mental health and LGBTQ+ representation. In 2001, she revealed that she had been living with bipolar disorder, explaining that she had kept it private for years due to societal stigma. Later, in 2012, she came out as gay, sharing that she had been in a loving relationship with her partner, Marty Allen, since the early 1990s. These disclosures were acts of quiet courage, allowing others facing similar struggles to feel seen and supported. Christie's story became an example of resilience, showing that life after fame could be meaningful and fulfilling, rather than defining her by Hollywood success or failure. She defined herself by the choices she made for her own well-being and authenticity. Today, Christy McNichol lives a life far removed from the pressures of Hollywood. She remains in Los Angeles, teaching and mentoring, occasionally attending fan events, and enjoying a quiet, stable home life. Her net worth, estimated at $7 to $8 million, is modest compared to contemporary stars, but money was never her priority. Her life is defined by survival, self-discovery, and personal peace. Christy has repeatedly emphasized that leaving show business allowed her to play her most important role, being herself. Her journey is a powerful reminder that fame is not the ultimate goal, and that courage is sometimes measured by the ability to walk away from the spotlight in order to preserve mental health, happiness, and personal integrity. Christy McNichol's story is not one of tragedy, but survival, resilience, and the courage to live life on her own terms. After leaving Hollywood behind, Christy McNichol entered a phase of life that was entirely her own, one where she could finally breathe without the constant demands of cameras, scripts, and public expectation. For the first time in decades, there were no call sheets, no tight filming schedules, and no pressure to please directors, producers, or fans. The spotlight that had once been both a blessing and a curse was gone, replaced by quiet days filled with self-discovery, reflection, and slow rebuilding of her inner world. Christy devoted herself to teaching acting at a private school in Los Angeles, sharing the knowledge she had amassed over years of working in the industry. She wasn't just teaching students lines or techniques. She was imparting lessons about empathy, authenticity, and emotional truth behind every performance. Students quickly came to admire her not just for her talent, but for the honesty and humility with which she approached both her craft and her life. Teaching became a form of therapy for Christy herself, allowing her to reconnect with the art she loved without the intense scrutiny and pressures that had once consumed her. Beyond her professional life, Christy embraced a quieter, more grounded existence. She surrounded herself with a small circle of close friends who respected her need for privacy, and she spent her time cultivating activities that brought her genuine joy and peace. Yoga and tennis became regular practices, helping her to center herself physically and emotionally, while her beloved miniature dachshunds provided companionship that was unconditional and comforting. In these years, Christy also poured herself into charitable endeavors, focusing particularly on organizations dedicated to mental health and cancer research, inspired by personal losses and a desire to help others navigate challenges that were often invisible to the outside world. She faced heartbreak during this time, including the death of close friends, but these experiences deepened her empathy and reinforced her commitment to living a life aligned with her values. Despite stepping away from fame, she remained thoughtful about her legacy and conscious of the impact her story could have on others. It wasn't about seeking recognition or regaining celebrity status. It was about living authentically, showing that life after Hollywood could be rich, meaningful, and full of purpose. Christie's personal journey became a quiet testament to resilience, the realization that even after years of intense public scrutiny, mental health struggles, and emotional turmoil, it was possible to reconstruct a life around self-care, love, and integrity. In this phase, she also came to understand that happiness was not measured by applause, magazine covers, or awards, but by small daily acts of kindness, meaningful relationships, and the freedom to be herself without judgment. Her home became a sanctuary, a place filled with laughter, books, animals, and routines that nurtured her spirit. Over time, Christy cultivated a profound sense of peace, discovering joy and simplicity, and embracing a life that, while far from the glare of Hollywood, was rich in emotional fulfillment and personal growth. The lessons from these years were invaluable, and Christy often reflected on them publicly, emphasizing that survival and authenticity were far more important than fame or material success. In interviews and private conversations alike, she spoke candidly about her struggles with bipolar disorder, her moments of despair, and the healing process that followed. Her openness provided inspiration to countless individuals who felt trapped by societal expectations, mental health challenges, or the pressures of their own ambitious careers. Through her teaching, advocacy, and personal example, Christy McNichol transformed her story from one of early stardom and personal pain into a narrative of courage, resilience, and hope, demonstrating that the most meaningful successes in life are those that nourish the soul rather than merely the public image. In the years that followed her withdrawal from Hollywood, Christy McNichol gradually began to embrace her identity more, stepping into a life defined by authenticity rather than public expectation. One of the most significant aspects of this period was her relationship with Marty Allen, her partner, who had been by her side since the early 1990s. Their bond was not forged in the glare of cameras or on red carpets, but in quiet, everyday life, sharing routines, supporting each other through challenges, and building a home filled with trust, laughter, and understanding. For Christy, Marty represented stability, safety, and companionship after decades of relentless scrutiny and pressure. Their relationship allowed her to experience love free from the obligations and performances that had dominated her earlier life. It was a love that was private, steady, and profoundly grounding, providing her with a foundation from which she could continue her healing journey. In 2012, after years of living this life quietly, Christy made the courageous decision to come out publicly as gay. This revelation was not a media stunt or a calculated attempt to regain public attention. It was an act of honesty, a declaration of who she had been all along. For a woman who had spent her formative years in the spotlight, constantly molded by others' expectations, coming out was a deeply empowering step. She wanted to offer visibility and hope to those struggling with their own identities, especially young people who felt isolated, misunderstood, or afraid to express their truth. By sharing her story, Christy broke barriers in an era when discussions of sexuality were still stigmatized in the public eye, demonstrating that it was possible to live openly, authentically, and successfully, even after the pressures and constraints of early fame. Alongside this personal revelation, she continued to speak candidly about her struggles with mental health, particularly her experience with bipolar disorder, which she had battled silently for decades. In interviews and public statements, she discussed the challenges of growing up in Hollywood, the toll of relentless work and expectation, and the importance of self-care and seeking help. Her willingness to be vulnerable and transparent provided a lifeline to countless fans and admirers who were experiencing similar struggles. Mental illness, particularly in the entertainment industry, often carries stigma and shame, but Christy's openness helped normalize these conversations and encourage others to seek support without fear or embarrassment. Beyond her personal story, she became an advocate through action, donating time and resources to organizations supporting mental health, LGBTQ+ rights, and bullying prevention. Her life became a blueprint for resilience, showing that even someone who had endured extreme stress, trauma, and public scrutiny could reclaim control over her life, establish boundaries, and cultivate happiness on her own terms. Christy's honesty and advocacy were never about celebrity. They were about connection and healing. She wanted people to understand that fame is not the ultimate measure of worth, and that personal peace, love, and authenticity are far more significant than applause or recognition. Through her partnership with Marty, her teaching, and her advocacy work, Christy McNichol illustrated the power of living a life true to oneself. She demonstrated that it is possible to reconcile past pain with present joy, and that stepping away from the public eye does not mean stepping away from influence or impact. Her story is a testament to the fact that courage takes many forms. The courage to say no, the courage to prioritize one's health, the courage to love openly, and the courage to share one's truth with the world. By embracing these acts of bravery, Christy created a legacy that extends far beyond her iconic performances as a child and teen star. She became an example of how life can be rebuilt on one's own terms, with compassion, authenticity, and strength, proving that surviving the pressures of fame is not just about enduring. They are about thriving, healing, and using one's experience to inspire and support others. In this chapter of her life, Christy McNichol was no longer defined by Hollywood. She was defined by her resilience, her love, and her unwavering commitment to live honestly, quietly, and fully as herself. Today, Christy McNichol lived a life far removed from the chaos and intensity of Hollywood, one that she has carefully shaped around her own values, passions, and sense of peace. At 62 years old, she continues to reside in Los Angeles, where she teaches and mentors young actors, imparting lessons that go far beyond technique, emphasizing the importance of authenticity, empathy, and emotional truth in performance. Her students see in her not just a former star, but a guide who has navigated immense challenges and emerged with wisdom, patience, and resilience. Outside of teaching, Christy fills her days with simple pleasures that bring her joy and grounding. Yoga, tennis, walks with her miniature dachshunds, and quiet evenings at home form the rhythms of her life, reflecting a deliberate choice to prioritize health, balance, and personal fulfillment over external recognition. Financially, her net worth, estimated at $7 to $8 million, stems largely from royalties earned from her early television and film work. But for Christy, money has never defined her. Her true wealth lies in survival, in the courage she demonstrated by stepping away from a life that demanded constant output at the expense of her well-being, and in the love and trust she shares with her partner, Marty Allen, and the small circle of friends who have stood by her through every stage of her life. Her story stands as a testament to the fact that success is not measured by fame, awards, or public admiration, but by the ability to reclaim one's life, to heal, and to live with intention and authenticity. Looking back, it is clear that Christy McNichol did not fade away from Hollywood because she failed or lost her spark. She walked away because she wanted to live fully on her own terms, to honor her mental health, and to prioritize the relationships and values that truly mattered. Her journey also reminds us that the life of a child star is often far more complex than it appears, filled with pressures and expectations that most people can barely imagine. Yet, through all the highs, the accolades, the heartbreaks, and the struggles, Christy has crafted a life of dignity, resilience, and quiet triumph. She has become a symbol of courage for anyone navigating the tension between public expectation and personal truth, illustrating that it is possible to survive extreme pressures, reclaim one's identity, and create a meaningful life even after enduring intense challenges. In interviews, she often reflects on her past with a sense of acceptance, acknowledging both the beauty and the pain of her early career, and emphasizing the lessons she has learned about self-care, love, and boundaries. For fans who grew up watching her on screen, Christy remains a beloved figure, not just for her performances in Family, Little Darlings, and Empty Nest, but for the grace, authenticity, and humanity she embodies today. Her narrative is not merely a story about a child star who left Hollywood. It is a story about a woman who survived relentless demands, found herself, and turned her experiences into a life that is meaningful, authentic, and full of love. Christy McNichol's journey teaches that sometimes the greatest performance an actor can give is not on screen, but in the courageous choice to prioritize one's own health, happiness, and truth. In a world that often glorifies fame and public recognition, her life is a reminder that walking away from the spotlight is not surrender. It is survival, it is self-respect, and it is the ultimate act of courage. Her legacy is one of resilience, empathy, and quiet strength, offering inspiration to anyone who has ever felt overwhelmed by expectations or constrained by the demands of others. Christy McNichol did not merely leave Hollywood. She reclaimed her life, and in doing so, she has left an indelible mark on the hearts of those who admire not only her talent, but her humanity. There was a time when Christy McNichol was everywhere. Her smile, her warmth, her raw emotion captivated audiences, and she was a kind of actress who didn't just play a role, she lived it. In the 1970s and 80s, she wasn't just Hollywood's favorite teenager. She was its beating heart. But then, at the height of her fame, she disappeared. No scandal, no farewell, just silence. For decades, fans and the public wondered what had happened to her, until now, when the story behind her sudden departure finally came to light. Christy McNichol was born on September 11, 1962, in Los Angeles, California, a city built on dreams. Her family's life, however, was far from glamorous. Her father left when she was young, leaving her mother, Carolyn, to raise Christy and her older brother Jimmy alone. Carolyn worked tirelessly, taking on roles as a secretary, makeup saleswoman, and even background acting parts, doing whatever was necessary to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Survival, not stardom, was the family's daily goal. But fate intervened in an unexpected way. One day, Carolyn had to bring Christy and Jimmy to a film set due to lack of childcare, and a crew member noticed the children's natural charm. "They'd be great for commercials," he remarked, unknowingly opening the door to an entirely new world for family. Soon, both Christy and Jimmy began auditioning for commercials. Jimmy, charming and easygoing, adapted quickly. But Christy possessed a spark that was hard to describe. Even at 10 years old, she exhibited an emotional intelligence and depth that set her apart. Casting directors noticed the way her expressions could carry both light and sadness, a rare gift for a child actor. By the mid-1970s, Christy was landing guest roles on popular shows like Apple's Way and Starsky and Hutch, steadily building her reputation in Hollywood as a young actress with extraordinary talent. In 1976, Christy landed a role that would define her early career, Buddy Lawrence on ABC's acclaimed drama Family. She was only 13, yet her portrayal was nothing short of extraordinary. Buddy was complex, sensitive, opinionated, and at times lost, a stark contrast to the perfect sitcom teenagers of the era. Christy brought authenticity and maturity to the role, earning 3 consecutive Emmy nominations for Best Supporting Actress and winning twice, in 1977 and 1979. Fans adored her. Magazines called her America's Little Sister, and talk shows clamored for her presence. Yet behind the camera, Christy carried immense pressure. Her mother, who managed her career, also depended on her income, and Christy felt responsible for supporting the family while navigating the demands of fame. The emotional role reversal took its toll. While other teenagers worried about dances and friends, she worried about contracts, lines, and professionalism. To be why in 1980, Christy had achieved more than most actors ever would. She was adored, respected, and undeniably talented.